All right, let's get going on a classic here. So this is going to be your classic Prince nymph. When we're done, we're going to have something that looks a little like this. Maybe not quite like this. I don't know if you can see it in the camera or not, but if you look at the body, you can kind of see how this fly is a little bit more red. This is my fiery Prince nymph, and I do that with a set of peacock that I have that's been dyed a pretty cool red. So that's how that was tied. On the voice, I've got a size 14 curved nymph hook with a tungsten bead. This is .020 lead-free wire. You can see that there's some thread already mixed in there. It's because I already did this video, and one of my materials towards the end kind of snapped, and it just made the fly look like crap. So I just kind of razor bladed everything off, and we're going to redo this thing. So let's get going. The thread I'm using is a thin diameter round thread. I would tell you exactly what it is, but it's an old thread from Montana Fly Company. Not even sure if it's even still available. So, but doesn't really matter. Any sort of round, thin diameter thread should be fine. I think that the round aspect is going to be more important than anything because this fly has a hot spot on the front of it, and if you are not using a round thread, that could really build up some bulk on you really quickly. So what I'm doing while I'm gabbing is I'm building up a triple thread base. I'm going all the way down to the back up, and we're going all the way down again. I only do this on certain types of flies. Mainly ones where I don't want the biot tails to really like splay out all that much. Stonefly imitations, Prince nymphs, obviously things like that. So, all right, so I've got a duck quill here. For my biots, I always use duck. Goose biots are really kind of the standard for nymph tails, but I've never understood why the overwhelming majority of a goose biot is oversized. A lot of times you see pictures and things of stuff like copper johns and other types of flies with biot tails, and you can just see that they're way overdressed. And the tails are way oversized as well. That's because those are goose biots. But on the duck biots, that entire quill will give you usable pieces of material. And they're cheap too. So duck all the way. So what we're doing here is we're getting our tail put on. And of course I'm doing these one at a time like I always do. I'm just simply not good enough to do them both at the same time. I kind of envy people that have mastered that technique. And as far as the fly itself, I don't have to say too much about it. This is a very popular fly. It's a standard in a lot of people's boxes. I've posted many pictures of my version of it, but I've admitted wholeheartedly that I don't really fish it. But this year, that's going to change. I want to be part of the cool club. I'm sick and tired of not being involved. So this year, I will fish a Prince nymph. And we'll see how that goes. All right, now, this is going to be a piece of extra small gold wire. Probably could or maybe even should use small, but doesn't really matter. You could even use tinsel if you want. I actually think the original pattern might even call for tinsel on the body, but I'm going to go with some wire. I like to maintain the fluffiness of the peacock body. Sometimes the thicker wire will mat it down. All right, next material, I got a peacock eye here, and what I want is I'm not really looking for parts of the eye up here. See where that discoloration is? If I go just below that, I've got some strands of herl that are just below the eye. Those are the pieces that I want, and the reason why I want those pieces is the barbs are a lot denser, they're a lot closer together, and they don't build up as big a bulk. As I said a minute ago, this fly is often overdressed, and a big, thick peacock body is usually part of that equation. So I'm going to flip this around, and I'm going to snip off the tips and even those up. and tie them in at the tips here. The reason why you want to tie them in at the tips is you're going to get those thinner fibers at the tip, which is what you want towards the back of your fly. And if you tie them in that way, this fly will build up a nice taper as we go along, and it'll give us that body profile that we're looking for. I'm just trying to fill in this gap a little bit here to help with that transition to get up onto that wire. That looks pretty good. I'll fill in this a little bit. Just get that all prepped and ready. Okay, now I'm going to take my 3 pieces of peacock. I'm going to fold them over the back, and I'm just going to continue all the way up with touching wraps to form the body of this fly. And you can kind of see on the back we're getting a nice, thick, dense peacock body that's not too overly thick. The fibers are going to get a little bit longer as we move our way up, and that'll give our entire fly a really, really nice taper. Get it looking the way we want. Again, a lot of these flies, people just take hurl and just wrap it, and I mean, it's fine, it'll catch fish, but I like that nice tapered body, and this is going to give me exactly what I want. So I'll get that locked in, and we are good. Now notice I only did 1 thread wrap to secure that. And the reason why is I want to kind of make every wrap at the head count, because we're going to build up a hot spot here. I'm going to start wrapping my wire as I talk, and even wraps all the way up to the front. But we're going to have that hot spot going, and if you're not conserving your wraps, that hot spot can get out of control pretty quickly, and it can start moving towards the back of the fly and end up way bigger than you wanted it to be. We don't want that to happen. So now I've got my wire up here at the front. I'm going to weasel my thread to get that secured. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to kill 2 birds with 1 stone. I'm going to finish securing my peacock while I secure my wire. And those wraps, instead of doubling them up, we secured both materials. So let's get rid of the wire. Now we'll slip in here, get rid of the peacock, and we are good to go. All right, next step is we're going to get our legs tied in with some brown partridge. Now, I have a piece already cut, and I've got the tips folded back, and that's ready to be tied in. But I do want to point out, when you open up a bag of partridge, there's going to be all kinds of different feathers in there, different sizes, different shapes. You're going to want a feather on the small side. You don't really want a really, really big feather, because when you go and wrap these legs, if that feather is too big, those fibers are going to extend all the way to the back of the fly and kind of dominate the fly. You want that peacock body to really kind of stand out. You want that to be the focus. So the legs shouldn't really dominate your presentation here. So pick a smaller feather. I also strip off one side of the feather because I want those legs to be a little bit more sparse. If you don't, again, you're just going to get too many fibers, and it's really just going to kind of dominate the entire fly, and we don't want that to happen. So I did 1 wrap here with this feather, and I'm going to pop it out of my pliers. Give me 2 wraps there, and I'm going to snip that off. So remember, all of these little details count, because if you don't want a big overdressed prince nymph, there's a lot of little things that you can do to prevent that from happening. It's this and a copper john are 2 of the most overdressed flies that I see in my travels. Good. Okay, so that is the majority of what we're doing here. The only step left is to tie in the traditional biots on the top of the fly. So what I'm going to do is I got a quill here of some white goose biots. In this situation, I am going to use goose because I want a little bit of a bigger, more prominent biot than what I had for the tail. So when you cut these, you can see the curvature, how it kind of points down. So I'm going to flip that over to where it points up, and I'm going to tie this in right dead on the top of my body. I'm going to kind of get the length where I want it. That might be a little long. That looks pretty good right there. So I'm going to tie this in with a nice tight wrap right on top, and I'm going to let it fold straight up. Then I'm going to come in here with my second biot, lay that right on top. Try to get those lengths matched up as good as I possibly can. That looks a little short, so I'm going to pull it this way a little bit. Don't worry about making them look, perfect and even or anything at this step. We'll take care of that in the next step. So now that they're of even length, let's get this excess cut off here. And we're going to take these and just simply fold them back over our body. I like mine to have a little bit of character as opposed to just laying dead flat. So I'm going to go over the top and get those secured. And those look like they're laying pretty much where I want them to lay. The only fibers that are giving me some trouble here are these partridge fibers underneath. So I want to get those stroked back a little bit. Get them the hell out of my way. Get back there. All right, good. Okay, and now we'll take a couple of wraps just to kind of tighten that up. We'll slip in here with our whip finish tool. 1, 2, 3. I'll probably put, not a huge head cement guy, but I'm going to use a little bit here for a couple of reasons. Not only because that thread is really exposed, but as you can see, I kind of just broke my thread on the whip finish. So I'm going to slip in a little bit of cement right there on top. And even though my thread broke, normally I would go back and redo that whip finish, but I'm going to secure this with some resin, so that'll be just fine. There's a guy that ties Euro nymphs. He doesn't whip finish at all. He just sinks his cement in and lets that go. I can kind of see the point, but I don't think you'll ever go wrong with a full whip finish. All right, so we'll get rid of that. And that is it. Normally when I do these videos, I can vouch for the flies that I tie, but I'm not a big prince nymph fisherman. I mentioned this year I'm going to do that. So I will fish this fly this year, but I know this fly has its fans. I know it's a favorite of many. It's super effective. I mean, there's no way that it's not super effective, or else people wouldn't love it as much as they do. So very well known, excellent fly. Next time we chat, I will be part of the Cool Club because I am going to take this year. I'm going to give that a try. I've got the regular version on the vise. I've got my fiery prince nymph here. That one I tied yesterday. And I had a friend tell me that they fish prince nymphs quite often for steelhead, which I thought was pretty intriguing. So what I did is I also spun up this purple version of a prince nymph, and I will be using this for steelhead. So we'll see how that goes. So there's that pretty standard fly. It's not difficult to tie, but you do have several areas where you can build up a lot of bulk really quickly. So those little tips that we went over in this video are important. Make sure you choose the right material with the peacock. Make sure you choose the right thread so you're not building up a ton of bulk here at the head. Make sure that your partridge feather is appropriately sized. And that will give you a nice, non-overdressed prince nymph. Okay, so that be that. Any questions or anything, just leave them in the comments. I'll respond to as many as I can. And we're good to go. I'm going to go fish this thing.